Welcome to this test drive of LMN's budgeting, the most powerful part of LMN. A budget for many contractors is something they've never done before, but we'll try to make it as easy as possible for you. And trust us, most of our contractors have never built a budget before. It's their first time, but we'll get you through it. And once you get through it, and once you make it through your first year, you're going to wonder how you ever ran your business without one. A budget is an amazing tool for a business. Every business should have one, whether you run landscaping, painting, or a bakery. Your budget's your plan to make profit. It's going to detail the profitable sales goals you need and the expense targets so that you know that as long as you hit these things, you're going to make money. We'll make it even better because we'll benchmark your sales goals and expenses against industry averages so that you can see where you're overspending and underspending against other companies that are just like you. We'll also provide you with overhead recovery markups to take the mystery out of pricing jobs. All those non-estimated costs like rent, insurance, and office salaries, LMN will automatically put the right amount into each and every bid so that you know you're bidding every job for profit. And finally, we'll run an analysis of your financials against both the benchmarks and against a list of questions to make sure you've done your budget as accurately as possible. So let's dive right in and take a quick tour. The purpose of this video is not to learn how to budget. We're going to cover those in great detail in some of the other videos. For this video, we're just going to take you on a quick tour of what a budget can do for you. That's the point of the test drive. Test drives make it easy to look around LMN without putting a whole lot of work into it to make sure that it's a tool that fits your company's needs. I'm going to start with a sample budget here. You should pick a sample budget that's closest to your revenue. This budget's got $1 million in sales. We see it up here in the title. The most important part of the first screen is this work breakdown. Here you're going to enter your mix of work, the type of work your company does. That's going to be critical for benchmarks because we're going to look at other companies that do a similar mix of work and compare your spending against the industry averages for companies just like you. So when we look at, for example, material spending, maintenance companies are going to spend far less on materials than design build. So it's really important that we have accurate benchmarks to help guide you. That's what the work breakdown's for. Let's start with the sales budget now. Sales budget's pretty simple. You're going to start here by plugging in your sales, what you did last year versus what you hope to do next year. And your budget's really going to be built on your forecasts or your hopes. Now you can keep your sales real simple, like one line, or you could break it up by division like I have. Either way doesn't matter. You're going to end up with what we sold last year and what I hope to sell at the end of next year. Now, to do these sales, first thing we're going to need is crews. So we'll jump to the next section, which is field labor. Here, you're going to put in your different roles, how many people you have at each role, the hours they work, the overtime hours, and their average wage by role. All those numbers are going to add up to show you what you're going to spend on field labor, plus burden, which is like payroll taxes and workman's comp and that kind of stuff. You'll end up with a ratio of labor expenses to sales, which is what percent of your revenue are you spending on your crews? And then we'll benchmark that against industry averages so that you can see whether your crews are more productive or generating more sales per dollar of wages than the industry average or less productive. Awesome numbers here. Next budget's your equipment budget. Here's where you're going to plug in your fuel, your repairs, and your insurance, but also the types of equipment you have and how many of each. LMN's going to look far beyond normal accounting and say, on average, what do you spend to buy this equipment? How long do you keep it for? What's it worth at the end of its life? What's the interest or inflation? And at the end, show your company exactly what it needs to recover per year in order to make sure that your customers are paying for the depreciation of your equipment and not you. All too many contractors don't see equipment properly in accounting. And because they don't have payments, they think, well, I don't have to estimate for it. I don't have any payments. But one day that equipment's going to die and you're going to need to replace it. And if you haven't been charging your customers for it, money you thought was profit years ago is now getting spent to buy new equipment, if you still have it. That's the catch-22. That's why so many contractors get stuck with old equipment and no money to replace it. We're going to help take the guesswork out of that as well. These numbers will feed into estimating to make sure each and every job pays for the equipment it uses. Materials, same thing. You're going to break down your materials if you want, what you spent last year, and what you're going to spend next year. This one's really simple. If you're growing by 10%, you're probably going to spend 10% more on materials. So it's not too hard. Exact same with subcontracting. What we spent last year, what we think we're going to spend next year. Your overhead budget is really, really key. The overhead budget is what takes the non-estimated costs and puts numbers to them that will eventually also flow into estimating. So things like advertising, phone bills, software fees, travel expenses, legal expenses. You're not going to estimate these things when you bid a customer's job, but it's critical that that job recovers them. So by putting in your overhead expenses, your overhead wages, which is the salaries of the people whose time you don't estimate, bookkeepers, mechanics, probably your time as an owner, and your overhead equipment that you don't estimate, owner's truck, salesperson's car, or whatever. This is what makes sure that all these expenses feed into the estimates to make sure that they get, so that when you bid a job, you're not guessing and hoping that job is profitable. LMN's going to help you know that job is profitable. Finally, it's going to crunch all those numbers together and give you a profit and loss. If you hope to sell this, you think you're going to spend this on job expenses and this on overhead expenses, here's what you're going to have left. Now, 95% of contractors hit here, and they're not making the money they think they'd like to make. So that's where you go back and you start fixing things. Maybe you got to sell more work. Maybe you got to do the same work with less people. Maybe you got to spend less on overhead. We can help you with those by looking at your benchmarks to identify what the best approach should be for success. Once you're profitable, LMN will calculate overhead recovery numbers for you. These are the percentages or dollar values that your estimates are going to get marked up by to make sure your company's making money on every job it bids. And finally, the analysis tool. We'll take all these numbers and give you a breakdown of your company, like how much revenue per hour that you need to generate, what your capacity or efficiency is. So we'll look at how efficient your company is and put a number to it. Things like throughput. And we'll also review your budget for things that look out of whack and make suggestions on how to fix it. Now, we're not going to explain all these numbers in this video. It's just the test drive. But there's a help button on every single screen we just went through, and that'll help you with all the details. Again, this test drive is not to teach you how to budget. We'll do it, but we'll do it with the help videos individually. This one's just to give you what a budget can do for your company. Which brings us to help. Hey, we know for most of our users, this is the first time they've ever built a budget, and we will do anything to help you make it right. That includes a help button on every screen, which will take you to videos like this one, but far more detailed, that'll help you build each and every budget right. Still having trouble? There's a support button where you can reach and chat with one of us one-on-one. We'll also bend over backwards to make sure your budget's right. Heck, when you get this running, this is going to be one of the most important financial documents in your business, and we appreciate that. So we really want to make sure, as much as you do, that it's right and it's the best thing we can put together for your business. Still have questions, and maybe it's after hours or something, you can email us at support@golmn.com and we'll help you. When you're done your budget, reach out to us again. We can set up a one-on-one webinar with you to review each and every part of your budget with you. And we'll note things that look maybe out of whack or ask you questions just to make sure things are done the way we'd expect. Sound good? That's the test drive of your budget. I strongly encourage, before you really dive in and build a budget, just to use this sample budget that's in your trial to do other things like set up your item catalog or go to your estimates and build an estimate. We don't recommend building real estimates with sample data, but at least you can try out estimating without having to build your own company's budget first. When you're ready to make the decision that LMN's the tool for you, then it's time to sit down and plug your numbers in, and we'll be there to help you every step of the way. Thanks a lot.